Welcome back to the Hearthstone Championship Tour, America's Spring Championship. I'm Robert Wing on the desk, joined by Cora. Some bold words coming out from Joster, and we actually see PNC with the guns, just holsters them. Very excited to see this match. Excited to see if Argentina can continue its trend of, bringing out these high-skilled players.
Absolutely. Argentina being here truly does make it an America's Championship. And here we see the bans, PNC having banned Joster's Warrior and Joster having banned PNC's Shaman. Now, it's important to note that both these guys are actually bringing identical class lineups, though the archetypes are a bit different. Joster has a Reno Lock in his arsenal, whereas PNC has brought a Zoo Lock for his Warlock pick. Yeah,
PNC, doesn't necessarily want to deal with that Warrior from Joster. Warrior's a class that's done exceedingly well in the Spring Championship season. We're going to hop right into game one here, and the matchup is going to be Miracle Rogue versus PNC Zoo deck. Cora, what do you think of this matchup post-standard format?
All right, so this matchup, I believe, generally does favor the player that can actually deal with the early aggression better. So if the Zoo Lock can play out his early cards and the Rogue doesn't have backstab, SI7, Agent, Deadly Poison, things like that to curb the aggression, that it is Zoo favored. But if the Rogue does have that big swing turn and then is able to draw enough cards to get the burn, then it will actually go for the Rogue. But here I want to say it's looking Zoo favored to me, especially with PNC's strong early hand.
Yeah, worth noting, and I think this is a big deal in this matchup, is that PNC is not running Leroy Jenkins, so he's opted for that double Doomguard Sea Giant build, and Sea Giant can oftentimes just be a dead card against Rogue because of something like Sap coming out, just immediately putting it back, but Doomguard does offer him some reach from the hand, obviously with those double power overwhelmings and the one copy of Soulfire as well. But yeah, PNC, to your point, just opens up with a really strong curve.
Absolutely. Interesting to see because most of the Zoo Locks, like you said, have been running Leroy Jenkins, and then they've been playing double power overwhelming plus a Soulfire. So from hand, the Zoo Lock has had so much potential damage, and now running Doomguard, you do get two of them, so you are going to draw it more consistently, but the potential damage from hand goes down significantly when you do discard those two cards from hand. So it's going to be interesting to see if PNC can actually finish off this game with the Doomguard, as opposed to if Leroy Jenkins would have been a better choice.
We do see Leroy Jenkins in the hand of Joster, so if you've played Miracle Rogue ever since the year 2014, you understand what that card is in there and what it does. For Miracle Rogue, it's going to be one of those situations where, can Joster stabilize, as you said, clear out some of these minions, curb some of the aggression, get to Gadget and Auctioneer, just start going off, drawing a bunch of cards, because that's where the deck truly shines. And, this is one of those decks that a lot of people are bringing, but a lot of the more storied Rogue players don't always think they play it super well. It's one of those decks where there's a lot of backseat driving going on from the Rogue players, like, I wouldn't have made this play. I remember casting Inner for the Europe Spring Championship. A lot of players were very vocally calling out some of the plays he made, not thinking, even as he was winning, not thinking the lines of play were super good. So always fun to have the opportunity to watch Miracle Rogue work because, you just feel like you always have so many plays.
And we always joke that the real Miracle Rogue savants always think that Miracle Rogue is favored in every single matchup. They'll say, oh yeah, this is like a 55-45. Like, no, man, it's 50-50 at best. Like, they've always seemed to have so much confidence, and a lot of confidence with this deck comes from just the skill level with which you play it. And Joster is a younger guy. He's a younger player, maybe not quite as skilled as some of these higher technical level Miracle Rogue players. So, gonna be interesting to see if he does make, some slight missed calls or mistakes, depending on what his choices are. So far, he's been able to curb the aggression from PNC pretty easily, but he doesn't have a lot of follow-up in hand.
Cora, I have to ask, do you think maybe there's a world where the Freeze Mage and the Miracle Rogue players get together on like a Friday night, they go and sit down somewhere, they're like, you know what, we are better than everyone else, and we are simply the best Hearthstone players.
Yeah, I think that's actually just happening behind our backs right now, and we just don't know, because we're not elite members of the club.
No, I'm a elite member of the Face Hunter Club. We just get together and we're like, yeah, Smork.
Yeah, well, I chose incorrectly when I picked Secret Paladin to main for 3 months, and now that club's dead and everybody hates me.
No,
so,
didn't you watch DreamHack? Didn't you watch DreamHack? That class is back with a vengeance, deck rather. We see here PNC playing down the second Peddler, goes with that power overwhelming. Dark Peddler, obviously an incredibly powerful card because you can get things like power overwhelming or Soulfire, which dramatically increases your reach overall.
Absolutely, but here we see the big issue with PNC having chosen to bring Doomguard is that he has the power overwhelming and he has the Doomguard in hand, but to play them both in the same turn is going to be really difficult unless PNC has another minion on board that he can play the power overwhelming on before playing the Doomguard out, and then he's still going to be sacrificing quite a few cards. So he does have a strong turn at this point. Miracle Rogue really suffering from that loss of Blade Flurry after Standard.
Hey, look, Blade Flurry is still sitting there on the bench core. If you ever need Blade Flurry, it is there. It is ready to, it's like, coach, put me in.
It can be used. It can, and Joster's probably kicking himself right now for not having it because it would have been really good on this turn. But unfortunately, just not seen in any of the lists today. I think for good reason.
Nah, Blade Flurry's coming back in a big way. I can feel it. It's like, hey, I noticed you got all these minions on the board. It's like the Microsoft Office paperclip. Like, I noticed you have a lot of minions.
I noticed you need help. Can I be of assistance? We're like, no, paperclip. It's really
well,
okay.
If it was a 31 card deck, you'd be the 31st card. But we do see the Tomb Pillager coming down. PNC has a very zoo board, you know, some cheap minions, but we are getting awfully close to a potential Miracle Prep Conceal. And once that happens, there's a chance that Joster can go off, but PNC just applying the pressure now.
Absolutely. Looks like he is going to trade in the Tomb Pillager, but that gives Joster the coin to use with the Gadgets and Auctioneer on the following turn.
Yeah, you don't even need to use that prep.
I mean, you can. I would honestly say you can use the prep and just try and pick up another spell, depending on what you get with the coin.
Oh, you really want to find that Blade Flurry right here. Just prep Blade Flurry, or no, sorry, Fan of
the Blade Flurry you didn't put in your deck.
It's on my brain
now.
Oh,
gosh.
All right, let's see if he can get that Fan of Knives. Does not get it. So from this point on, he could gamble and potentially play the preparation and try to dig for something else.
He
but
could.
Looking at what's on board, if you don't run into Power Overwhelmings, you know you're alive next turn. Because the board's full.
And Joster could, I mean, he could prep the Eviscerate, take out the Peddler, but at that point you're setting yourself up for a Doomguard to come down on board, and then after that it's just, you know, you're literally just having yourself take more damage. So it's best to just let the board be full. You know exactly how much you're taking, except for those buff cards coming from hand. So Joster is going to get another turn here, and let's see if Miracle Rogue can do what Miracle Rogue does best.
He's going to have to start there, I think, with that Sinister Strike, which does not feel super... All right, so he gets the SI7 agent. Sorry, Shadow Strike.
Shadow Strike, yeah. Sinister Strike would be, you know, decent too.
Wow, this is
one mana cycle.
This isn't a Malagos Rogue.
If
All
only.
right. We'll see here. Yeah, so he goes ahead, gets the sap, which is not really going to do him literally anything here.
Yeah.
If anything, if he has to go into the next turn, you want to keep basically what's on the board because it represents a fairly weak attack total. But he chooses to go ahead and sap the Argent Squire, draws the Cold Blood.
He's really looking for that Fan of Knives here. If he can pick up Fan of Knives, he can clear the board really easily. And then the only thing that kills him is a Doomguard plus a Soulfire or a Power Overwhelming, which PNC would have to get lucky on again because of the discard coming from the Doomguard or the discard coming from the Soulfire.
Fan of Knives, where are you?
He's got to be there.
Fan of Knives is hanging out with Anduin Rin somewhere.
There's two of them. They're
but
just
not in this tournament.
Not invited to the party, apparently, which is unfortunate for Joster. PNC does have Doomguard in hand. That's going to be 5 damage. Joster only at 9 health. All right, he brings himself up to 12. And PNC with 10 represented right now. He could tap. He needs 2 damage. Abusive Sergeant would do it. Dire Wolf would do it. Power Overwhelming or Soulfire most likely would do it. But right now, it's not quite enough.
Yeah, I think PNC needs to open up with that tap. Go ahead and see if he can just end the game now. And if not, I think you have to get rid of the Gadget and Auctioneer because it basically represents the only way you can kind of lose it from this point.
But at the same time, you're so close to lethal, you're really, really hesitant to take anything off the board because then you're giving up your own damage. But Joster is representing 8 damage from Gadget's End, 3 from the Earthen Ring Farseer, and PNC knows that there is another Cold Blood, there is another Eviscerate Leroy Jenkins, so at 17 health, you can never feel safe against a Miracle Rogue. It's just too risky to leave anything on the board at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, I understand being close to lethal, and as someone who plays a lot of aggressive decks, we just wanted to go for it, but I'm not sure you leave up the 8-4 Gadget at Auctioneer. I think
maybe just a little bit too risky here.
Yeah, he doesn't even go for the tap, so that's interesting. He doesn't go for the tap, just decides he's going to keep developing the board, putting on pressure. He's able to bump up the Dark Shard Councilman to be a 3-5, so it deals with that Earthen Ring Farseer and just keep pressing the advantage.
Just really wanting to protect himself here from something like Leroy Jenkins, Cold Blood, Eviscerate, maybe a prep in there. If he had tapped to 15, there could have feasibly been lethal from Joster. So staying at 17 just a little bit more safe. And Joster does pick up that Phantom Knives, but it is one turn too late.
After PNC trades in all those 1-1s, Phantom Knives, like, alarm clock goes. I was like, oh, yeah, I was supposed to be in today.
I should probably get on in there, but just woke up a little late this time. Shadow Strike is going to deal with that Darkshire Councilman really easily, which is very nice. But Joster still has to find a way to get rid of the Imp-Gang boss.
Yeah, Joster's at a point now where, you know, he has to keep dealing with the board because he doesn't have the ability to inflict lethal damage. He doesn't have the ability to draw a bunch of cards through Gadget and Auctioneer. He has to continuously just be clearing this board, or else he runs the risk of dying to something like Power Overwhelming. So has to be very committed to that and kind of just winning this the old-fashioned trade way. All right, is that... Ooh.
All right, Joster came up with a really great play there, traded the Earthen Ring into the Imp-Gang boss, and Phantom Knives left with one.
Don't drop the Doom
Urgent
Guard.
Square on the
board.
board.
And the Doom Guard is still green, so that is going to wrap up game 1 for PNC. You know, discarding cards, not a big deal when you just don't discard the wrong ones.
But exactly at that point, Doomguard was just so much unnecessary risk, whereas with Leroy Jenkins, you would have just had guaranteed lethal. So it's really saying, which do you value more? Knowing that you're going to have the damage more likely because you can have 2 Doomguards, or knowing that you're not just going to lose the game because of some really bad luck at that point because you don't have Leroy Jenkins. So it worked out for PNC this time. His Zoo deck is going to be out of the way, and he's going to take this first game, going up 1-0 on the match.
You know, Corey, I say why not both? Why not all those charge minions? But before we head into game 2, let's get to know the new player to the scene, Joster.
Hi everybody, I'm Joster. I'm from Florida, and I'm here to win the Spring Championship. When I first saw Hearthstone, it was in closed beta, and my brother introduced me to it because I didn't have many games I could play on my pretty terrible laptop at the time. So I checked it out, and I couldn't get myself a key at first, so I just started watching streamers a lot on Twitch. You know, I watched Trump and Crip, and I started to learn the game and knew a lot about the game before I eventually did get a key. And ever since then, I've just been playing pretty consistently. I've just started on the tournament scene. I've been playing open tournaments, and the preliminaries was the first major tournament I've ever actually played in. I'm hoping that by the end of this weekend, I'll have enough prize money to get myself a nicer computer.
I think getting ourselves nicer computers is a beat we can all dance to, Cora.
Absolutely.
You know,
and
I want to stream Overwatch. I need a better computer.
Yeah, I think Joster's already secured that better computer for himself. So no matter what happens here, he should be proud. But he comes in so tentatively. He's like, I'm here to win the America's Spring Championship. It's like you want him to have the confidence, but he's sort of an unassuming, more quiet confidence. But he's been playing really well so far. Unfortunately, the first game didn't go his way, but you know, there's still, it's a best of 7, so.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, a lot of the players kind of come in here with this a lot of machismo and a lot of bravado, but Joster's like, I'm here to have fun and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
So we're just going to have fun.
Yeah, and unfortunately, being down 0-1 is not fun, but he's going to go ahead and bring out that Shaman deck, playing against PNC's Hunter, and thing from below we see in the opening hand. It's not something he's going to keep, but that's definitely a card that can give Hunter problems. The Giant Taunt at a very much discounted rate, Tuskar Totemic likely to be kept, Flame Tongue Totem, I think is worth a keep.
It's tough to say. If the Shaman gets a really nice early start and then can put Thing from Below on board just to really spiral the game out of control, then the Hunter has a hard time dealing with it. They can't give up a kill command or a deadly shot when they need to be using their mana to advance their own board further. So the Flame Tongue Totem is nice to have on too. But at this point, I think Joster, especially against a Hunter who's most likely going to have really strong early game as well, is going to be searching for those more normal Shaman staples of the Tunnel Trog, the Totem Golem. Tuskar Totemic is really nice to have, but we're going to see what he ends up going with. And he mulligans it all, except for the Abusive Sergeant, I believe.
Yeah, he might have gotten a second copy. We did not see there. Something I find interesting is we've been watching the evolution of Hunter in the Spring Championship season. And a lot of people have been unsure what you do with regards to Kodo, Stranglethorn Tiger, and High Mane. We saw Crane at the Europe Spring Championship just decides he's going to go double Kodo and double Stranglethorn Tiger, no High Manes. We saw Tice obviously running the High Manes. PNC, 1 Kodo, 1 Tiger, 1 High Mane. Let's just have everyone in there.
One of each. Let's bring the whole family. And we've actually seen a lot of Tundra Rhino is an interesting tech on ladder and in some tournament play. but none in the Hunter decks today, even though 7 out of the 8 players have brought Hunters in as one of the decks in their lineup.
Right, so PNC goes ahead, quick shots Sir Finley Murgleton off the board to protect that fiery world champion bat. And we're going to see the ping come out. Joster chose the Fire Blast, and that is, sorry Firebat, wherever you are if you're watching, I'm sorry. That is a dead bat.
You know what? There's always the second bat, so I think it's going to be okay. And in this case, Joster is running an injured Kvaldir in his Hunter list, so that's going to be interesting to see if maybe the roles flip after this. But Joster right now just going to be able to play the Argent Horse Rider, Abusive Sergeant, clear off that Leok really easily. We have seen a lot of Leoks today.
Yeah, Leok is, he's a pretty swell guy. He boosts the attacks of your friends and doesn't afraid of anything. So I'm a big fan of Leok. Although I think at that point, really, obviously Hopper's just the best because you're doing 4 damage.
I was gonna say you're the Hunter player and you're a big fan of Leok, Rob. I feel like you're just going against everything you've set up until this point.
When you play a lot of Hunter, you have to learn to love all the animal companions because at some point, if you don't, you're just going to be disappointed when it's not Hopper. So, you spend time with all of them.
You can be happy with any of them. Make friends. Be nice to them.
When you're not good at Hearthstone core, which is me, you learn to have realistic expectations. You're like, Leok's great too.
He has a role. He fits his part. We're just gonna roll with the punches and take what comes. But
Absolutely.
in this case, Leok didn't work out too well for PNC, although it would have been the same with Misha there, and Hopper might have actually been the worst one in that case. But yeah.
There's an animal companion for every situation. We see Joster go ahead and drop down that Totem Golem, and he is going to just put on the pressure. Not going to bother trading with that Infested Wolf, as the Infested Wolf can't cleanly trade with the Totem Golem, so doesn't play around something like Houndmaster, but if you get PNC to play the Houndmaster on 5, it's a pretty inefficient turn. You don't really feel like you're losing out on too much is the read I would make. So I don't necessarily mind that play at all because, the reality is if the spiders come out, they trade so efficiently with your 2-1s. So actually, I like that play from Joster.
Yeah, very forward thinking, might as well push the aggression. He knows what his deck is built to do. He's playing an aggro shaman.
Yeah.
And why trade when you know it's just going to result in your board being picked off? Leave it to your opponent to do the trading and make it more difficult for him. And this actually is, it's not the most difficult turn for PNC, but it is a little bit hard to stomach having to give up that kill command on a 3-4 when you know there's going to be minions like the Flame Wreath Faceless that might need that kill command to be removed from the board. But PNC just going to go ahead and play down that huge toad. He does trade off the Infested Wolf, but gets those 2 spider tokens on the board, which will trade nicely with the help of some buffs if he can get them.
Yeah, we saw it play out there, but the Infested Wolf was already damaged as well. So when it traded down into the 2-1, it's not even like it necessarily got that much of a value trade, at least on the initial body of the Infested Wolf. So worked out pretty reasonably for Joster there. We're going to see... So he goes ahead and waits to put down the minions first. So that's interesting because if he'd sequenced it differently, he could have ensured that he took the damage basically to the face.
I don't like that there because now if PNC wants to, he can actually clear off one of those Feral Spirit tokens. I think that might have just been, I don't know, maybe some nerves on Joster's part, but definitely I would think some reasonably bad sequencing there. And PNC is going to be able to clear off that token and play out Savannah Highmane, which he top decked on turn 6. That must make you pretty happy, Rob.
I'm always happy when I see Savannah Highmane, and Joster's not running Hex, so PNC feels pretty comfortable that he is going to keep that Highmane. To your point earlier though, Joster was able to protect the Abusive Sergeant, which he played after, so it ends up being okay.
You could have just taken the 1 damage to
maybe some people don't like to be hurt, Cora.
I mean,
I'm a sensitive guy.
saying,
I get it.
I understand. I can understand that, Rob.
I get it. PNC plays that deadly shot and hits Paydirt.
Okay,
really.
then.
That's I would think maybe aside from the Flame Tongue, that's probably what you want there.
In this case, might even just be better because you could trade into the Flame Tongue if you want, meaning that your Highmane doesn't take any damage, or you could technically just push back for face. At some point, the Hunter has to deal damage, and the old adage is if a Savannah Highmane hits face, the Hunter wins the game. But I don't know in this case if that's sort of the truth, but
that was the old world, Core. Those were different times. Now we're late game deck. We've grown up. We've refined. we're here to get to turn 8, and then we'll kill you.
We've become a mid-range list.
Dark times indeed. So he goes in and trades with that Abusive Sergeant.
Wants to freezing trap the Argent Squire.
Yep.
Yeah,
so that's pretty much exactly, I think, what he was playing around. So the Horse Rider, though, is going to come down and get the buff from the Flame Tongue Totem after, I would assume it's going to be the Argent Squire he chooses to bounce. That's going to be a pretty intimidating Horse Rider. Now, so if you're Joster, you have the ability to clear out the bat. are you really interested in trading with this high game? I don't
mean,
think you are. I think you're just going. Yeah. Oh, and he bounces back.
That.
I wonder, I mean, Joster obviously has access to the deck list from PNC, and when we look, we see that, you know, PNC is running 1 freezing trap, so there are no explosive traps, there's no snake. That is a very interesting decision. I have to imagine that was just a little bit of missequencing there from
some
Joster.
oversight once again. Joster maybe suffering from nerves here. He's already down 1-0, and as much as, you know, there are up to 7 games in the match, being down 1-0 is not, you know, life-ending, but it definitely can't feel good. It can definitely raise your anxiety maybe a little bit, so.
Hey, losing 1 game on ranked play is literally all it takes to make me sad, so I completely understand this, and you know, PNC has his background as someone who's done a lot of competitive gaming. It's something he's very vocal about. Like, this is just the next chapter in his story, really, as a competitive gamer. And Joster, on the other hand, you know, he's a nice guy, sweet kid, and he comes out. This is not necessarily his forte, but what a draw for PNC. Oh, you see Joster just kind of go, well, that was kind of worst case scenario. And Joster is not out of this yet. Something like a Doomhammer, some more direct damage. That's good.
Second Lava Burst would just be lethal here.
But, so he has 8. No, this is gonna. Is it gonna do it, or is he 1 off with the
9, 10, 11, 12? He is 1 damage off lethal this turn.
But you have the hero power, the Fire Blast hero power, so it's gonna set up the lethal for next turn.
Wow, and then PNC 9, 10, 11 kill command would do it. That's not it. 5 from the Lava Burst, 3 from Lightning Bolt, and 1 from the hero power. Joster is going to take this game after a series of some questionable sequencing, maybe some nerves, but still managed to pull it out and tie up the series 1-1.
Hey, you know what Lava Burst thinks of taunt? Not a whole lot, so we're going to see Joster go ahead and tie up the series. PNC just kind of nods, looks down. I mean, that feels pretty awful, especially when Joster was like unequivocally dead next turn. That was game.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Joster does manage to close it out. Maybe getting this win will be something, you know, that allows him to kind of calm down a little bit and maybe focus more on making sure he's sequencing properly. He's right there, just has to make sure he's doing that much.
You know, much like his Harry Potter counterpart, Ron Weasley, you know, Joster just gets a little nervous when it comes to technical play and Hearthstone school, as it would be. And I'm just gonna go ahead and stop with this metaphor now because I think it's probably for the best.
Thanks for the analysis. Cora, PNC is in it for the competition. He wants to be one of the competitive greats, not necessarily so much in it for the money. Let's take the opportunity to get to know PNC a little bit better.
PNC has been playing competitive video games for years.
I've been trying for a really long time, but I fail every time.
And he's always been looking for that one big shot, that one breakthrough performance.
Before I play team games, you need 5 people really focus on what you're trying to do and achieve, and that's not easy to get 5 people to do that. That's probably the main reason why I decided to start playing Hearthstone. I started playing Hearthstone like 1.5 years ago. This is the first time I reach a really big tournament, and I feel like now is the time.
To the Spring Championship.
I don't know, I don't really care like about the money. I want to win it because I want to win it. I don't know.
I love this little end zone dance. As someone who watches a lot of football or watched a lot of football growing up, like that's something I think it was like Emmitt Smith from the Dallas Cowboys, showing my age here. But PNC, you know, PNC wanted to play a game where his individual skill and ability mattered more than the sum of the parts of the team. And I actually think it's harder to play Hearthstone when you have 5 people because there's just so much differing opinions. So you can just tell people,
a lot
like,
of bickering.
Go away. I'm going to sit in my room, play Hearthstone.
It's an individual game for a reason. And you know what? PNC is showing that he has the technical skill to play this game at a very high level, and we are going to see the Miracle Rogue Mirror, Rob. Isn't this just your favorite match?
I was going to say, this is effectively the skill bowl, as I call it, because it's just, you bring your Miracle Rogues, and you're like, all right, who's actually the best at this deck? Like, we're going to find out who's the Miracle Rogue player, and who's the person that brought Miracle Rogue to deal with aggro.
Absolutely, and maybe the only matchup that is even more difficult would be the Freeze Mage Mirror, but now really understanding why Miracle Rogue players and Freeze Mage players are, you know, think very highly of themselves because they are some of the highest skill decks in the game.
Yeah, I think as the mulligans go for this matchup, there are some interesting keeps. You know, we saw PNC keep Edwin Van Cleef, he kept the Tomb Pillager. These early pressure cards, obviously you want to get to your gadgets in. That's going to be probably what wins you the game. But having the early threats out will at least force some resources out of your opponent. The ability to make a big Edwin Van Cleef and them not have a sap is also a really big deal. And you know, when I think about this matchup, I think of some of the great players I've seen play Rogue over the years. You know, players like Firebat, players like Amnesiac, players like Dog. You know, that often take unconventional lines. And with a lot of decks, you can kind of be like, all right, I'm a hunter. I'm going to play minions. I'm going to get to the point where I just overwhelm my opponent. But with Miracle Rogue in the mirror, sometimes you have to, really even in other matches, you take these unconventional lines. And I think we are going to see here the Coin Tomb Pillager. Yeah, just go ahead and get something on the board, force an Eviscerate, force a stab.
And PNC does pick up that Conceal, so Edwin Van Cleef Conceal with the combination of several other cards on turns 4 or 5 can spiral a game very quickly versus another Miracle Rogue if they don't have any means of blocking the damage. They don't run taunts. The only heal they have is an Earthen Ring Farseer. So if the Edwin gets concealed, the sap is ineffective and then can deal upwards of 10, 12 damage depending on how many cards it's comboed with. So looks like PNC is going to play down the Edwin here. Fortunately for Joster, he does have the sap and the Eviscerate in hand, so it looks like he's going to be able to deal with this board pretty efficiently.
Yeah, but I do like this from PNC. Just go ahead, start putting out the pressure, start seeing basically what Joster has in hands. Like maybe there's a world where Joster just has like clunky like Gadget Day and Auctioneer. He has some SI7 agents that are kind of stranded in his hand, unable to be activated. So I do like this. You know, for his troubles, he's going to get Edwin Van Cleef back, and then could even go so far as to just try to remake it again. You know, there are a lot of options in this hand, and this is what makes his deck so intense and I think so skill testing, right? Like looking at PNC's hand, I can count at least 2 to 3 different plays he could make, and I'm not saying they're the best ones, but there are a lot of plays to make. And then, you know, taking in factors like, all right, Joster has used 1 sap, Joster has used 1 Eviscerate. You have to keep track of that because later on certain plays become more appealing as other resources become exhausted.
Absolutely, and I think PNC went with what was the best play overall, just playing Azure Drake on 5, cycle, get a minion on board. But he could have also gone for another very risky play with that Edwin Van Cleef, use the Deadly Poison and conceal possibly even Cold Blood. So with the combination of the coin, that would have represented a lot of damage on PNC's board for this turn, but decides to go with the Drake, and Joster using the second Eviscerate to clear it off really nicely while playing the Tomb Pillager on his own board. So just steadily advancing his board state while continuing to remove PNC's really effectively.
Yeah, now PNC could actually just reward him in kind and say, anything you can do, I can do better. Drop down the Pillager, Eviscerate Joster's Pillager, and the thing is, Joster's out of Eviscerates now. He's used 1 sap, and Rogue generally doesn't win this by building up a truly crushing board like, say, Zoo Warlock might, or something like mid-range Hunter. So you could actually start to think maybe Joster will have some issues dealing with the Pillager, but it's getting to that turn now where Gadget and Auctioneer is always in the back of your mind to conceal, how do I lose this? It looks like he's considering the Pillager, and we could just see the Eviscerate coming out. This keeps the board clear, allows him to be the aggressor, so I think this is a pretty safe play from PNC.
And Joster does have that Azure Drake for cycle, picks up a second coin here, but no Gadgets and Auctioneer in the hand yet. If a Gadgets and were here, Joster would have several cards that he could combo with it to be able to draw additional cards, and that would spiral the game very quickly in his favor. But because he's used much of his removal up to this point, he doesn't have any left really to remove PNC's sort of mid-range minions. He does, however, pick up the Shadow Strike, and he has a coin in hand. If he wanted to, he could go ahead and coin the Shadow Strike and clear off the Tomb Pillager.
I mean, it might just come down to that. It's one of those things where a lot of times just being that person who is able to keep the board for a turn or two makes the difference in this matchup. We see a lot of the pieces that could help Joster win later, the Cold Bloods, the Conceal, and I'm going to quote a Sodelism, which is saying that's the price of admission for playing this deck, is that you have these clunky cards that, yeah, sure, they're useful later on, but Cold Bloods are just going to sit in the hands for a while, and he is going for it.
Okay, I love this, and here's the reason why. Joster has double Cold Blood in hand, and now he has 7 damage concealed on board. So while he's used both Eviscerates already, this is essentially his winning route. He hasn't picked up Gadgetzan. He hasn't picked up Leroy Jenkins yet, so he's going with his best chance at dealing the 21 damage that PNC has left remaining in health as quickly as possible before PNC has something like Gadgets and Auctioneer spiral out of control with all the cards to cycle. And fortunately for Joster, PNC doesn't have Gadgets in yet either. So
yeah, I mean, he could have just gone, to your point, he could have done something like Azure Drake coin, the Shadow Strike and just kind of keep trading board back and forth. But this is what I was talking about earlier when I said as the Miracle Rogue player, you have to start looking for lines that don't necessarily feel the most direct.
Yes.
But they're lines that allow you to assemble a win condition. And again, to your point, he knows he's out of eviscerates. He is kind of down on offensive power. He doesn't, neither player has had the gadget and Auctioneer. So it's one of those things where, yeah, he found a line that he feels most comfortable with. And looks like PNC just might be off to the races now.
Joster only representing, I believe, 16 damage, 4 from the Drake, 8 from Cold Blood makes 12, 3 from the SI7 agent, and then 1 more from the Dagger. So he is going to have a tough time dealing that additional 5 damage. And PNC does exactly what Joster did, except 10 times better, because now he has a 10-10 Edwin Van Cleef, and his Tomb Pillager is a 9-4. So this is, you know, game point for Joster if he can't deal lethal damage here.
I like it. PNC is just basically like, you got to have it. You got to have it or I win. And
yeah,
we see that Joster does not have it anywhere close.
Essentially, Leroy Jenkins would have been Joster's only out here because he'd used both eviscerates at this point. He had no other way of dealing 5 damage, and PNC was able to come back from that game seeming like Joster was a little bit ahead most of the time, able to remove and then advance his own board, but PNC just had the damage when it came down to it.
Yeah, PNC proving that he's PNC, he's dynamite.
See, you even warned me you were going to do that.
I did.
One.
The ACD or ACDC reference was too sick not to use. But yeah, he's going up 2-1 in this series. And, you know, even best of 7, again, it's only 2 games. But you got to feel pretty good about your spot. Joster now once again trailing. But before we get too much further in this matchup, Joster was originally sent to military school prior to this because of low grades. But you know, ended up coming back, making a big comeback, and you know he's gotten to the point now where he's at the top 8 at the Americas Spring Championship. It's good to know that a little bit better.
My sophomore, junior year of high school, that was the time where classes started getting a lot harder. I was top of my class beforehand, but then when I started taking advanced placement classes and harder honors classes, I didn't really rise to the challenge, and eventually my grades started dropping through those years, and my father thought it was a good idea to send me off to military school. No computer, no Wi-Fi or anything. I was there for a few months. I didn't have any way to play Hearthstone. But as soon as I came back, I jumped right back in the game and I started playing again. So I know that my lineup's not going to be the most favored in the field, but the way I'm going to win this tournament is by being the best player out here, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. And even though I don't have the most major tournament experience, I have a lot of Open Cup and ladder experience, so my skill set's really established, and I think I'm going to come out here and win this tournament.
No computer, no Wi-Fi. Cora, let old man Rob tell you a tale about the dark times of growing up.
I don't want to remember that.
When I was a youth, we didn't have that fancy Wi-Fi. We didn't have smartphones.
Oh my goodness.
We didn't even have cell phones until, you know, I was in high school. That's how bad it was.
I had a cell phone in junior high, but my dad owns a computer store, so I've been blessed with technology for my entire life now. So it's, you know, great that Joster had that setback and was able to come back and rise to the challenge, as he said.
Yeah, and it's great to see him coming back and, you know, realizing this is a big opportunity, right? This is something he wants to put the time and effort into. We're going to see PNC go to this Dragon Warrior. This is one of those decks that apparently I was just blind to it. It was one of those things where I was like so excited about Tempo Warrior. I was like, yeah, I'm just playing Varian Rin. All my bros are coming out. We're just beating people up. And I didn't want to really acknowledge Dragon Warrior, but Dragon Warrior is a deck that's really been making a lot of progress lately, to the point where I've even seen some of the better players that I know on Twitter complaining about, you know, how do I deal with it. Interesting to see how it does against mid-range Hunter. PNC does open up with that Finley Murgleton, and this deck is more aggressive, so I wouldn't be surprised to see the Steady Shot, but Fire Blast has proven already in this series to be useful in curbing the board, and since Dragon Warrior isn't running something like Battle Rage to allow them to catch up, the ability to deal with the board is probably the better play overall.
Absolutely, and Joster running Injured Kvaldir as well as 2 Fiery Bats. So this Fire Blast is just going to be a nice way to remove those 1-drops if Joster did have them on his first turn. Fortunately for PNC, he does not. So we actually saw this Dragon Warrior from Edward Elric defeat Pimping Host Shaman on turn 5 last week in the Asia Pacific Championships. So it does pretty much the same thing as the Tempo Warrior, but it sacrifices the Battle Rage to hopefully normally just curve out very well every game and then defeat their opponent very quickly, and that's exactly what we're seeing from PNC here. He had Sir Finley Murgleton get the Fire Blast, which is a really nice hero power against the Hunter, into the Alexstrasza's champion, which was able to charge for 3 damage because of those Draconid Crushers, which are sort of a sleeper hit card in this deck. Really, really effective if your opponent is below 15 health on turn 6, which, if you're playing the deck right, they usually are.
Yeah, and we see that Camel come out. Obviously, this is what gives the deck its name as Camel Hunter. Pull out N'Zoth's First Mate. So this is a card we've seen a lot of it in very aggressive Pirate Warrior builds where, you know, you bring that out, you bring out Upgrade. N'Zoth's First Mate, unfortunately, not nearly as strong as a Kvaldir Warrior.
It was a 1 in 3 shot to pick out that Kvaldir here. Could have been either of the other 2 Fiery Bats, which would have been much better for PNC, but luckily for Joster, he did get the high roll and ended up bringing out the injured Kvaldir. A 2-4 for 1. I think that's actually the first time I've seen it in competitive play. We've seen some players bring the deck, but usually it doesn't work out. They just end up drawing the injured Kvaldir, which is essentially, you know, it's a 1-mana 2-1 at that point.
I really like what we saw there from Joster playing the second Camel. He understood that both of PNC's 1-drops had already been played. He'd already played Finley. He already had the N'Zoth's First Mate. So this is essentially just him playing down the Camel. He's going to get that free Fiery World Champion bat and just start going. And PNC's curve has
World Champion bat.
I'm going to make it stick. It's going to be a thing. I feel like this could be what it's called going forward. But yeah, PNC's curve has not been kind of at all. You know, this is one of those decks that really relies on a good curve early. Those Draconid Crushers, while they enable Alexstrasza's champion, have mostly been sitting there, and now PNC is playing from behind, and he's missing some of those tools that Tempo Warrior and Control Warrior have to kind of stabilize the board. So even while he has this, you know, Blackwing Corruptor, you know, he's still facing down a fair amount of pressure on the board, especially considering, you know, it's only turn 5.
PNC does have a couple of options here. He could Blood to Ichor and then Blackwing Corruptor the Desert Camel, which would give him a 5-4 and a 2-2. Joster would be able to trade really efficiently into them because he has the kill command. Or PNC could sacrifice the Slime token from the Blood to Ichor, simply play it on the Fiery Bat, and then Corruptor the Huge Toad, which would then still get countered by the kill command, but I mean, what can you really do here in his position? He could also just play Draconid Crusher as a 6-6, but really missing that turn 4, having only Fiery War Axe in hand while already having one equipped, as well as the Fire Blast, was really detrimental for him. It would have been much better if he'd had something like that Twilight Guardian or even a Frothing Berserker to advance his board state just a little bit, whereas Joster has now just been able to spiral that Hunter board even more.
Yeah, if you haven't seen too much of this deck, the 4-drops for Dragon Warrior, stuff like Kor'kron Elite, Twilight Guardian, so there are some fairly reasonable 4-drops that he just has unfortunately missed out on. Ragnaros in the hand, that's not going to be of much use at this point. Draconid Crusher, we're going to see the Deadly Shot just come out, and you know that's 3 mana to deal with a 6-mana 6-6, and allows Joster to just keep pushing pressure. And look at his hand. You know, if he gets to turn 8,
it's all over.
Assuming it even gets to that point, because what we're looking at next turn is the combination of Houndmaster Kill Command. Like, he's got this essentially locked up, right?
I mean, this really just shows the strength of that Desert Camel when it's played well and it's played effectively, and you ban Shaman, which is really what needs to be done there. It was just able, obviously it pulled out N'Zoth's First Mate, but it's a 1-1, and you get a 2-4 instead. So yeah, just really, really strong, able to keep that board control.
Yeah, PNC doing a good job of battling back for the board. We see the Tiger going to come down from Joster as he just drew it into the hand, and that's a guaranteed Houndmaster target essentially, but he might not even need it. You know, with the Call of the Wild coming out. In fact, it looks like he probably will not.
No, I don't think so. It's going to be 5 damage from Huffer, 5 damage from the Tiger, guaranteed, unless this Ragnaros can hit the 50-50, which is actually not super unlikely.
Yeah, that's true. Ragnaros, let's see. So, Call of the Wild comes down. You're going to take Fiery Warbat off the board, and I'm not even saying it anymore, right?
Fiery Warbat.
Yeah. I'm going to remember its real name at some point. Oh, and we do see it, so...
It hits.
Okay, you can do 5 damage off of the Call of the Wild.
I mean, really...
Yeah, it's still
Joster's game, but PNC's Ragnaros made it a little bit more interesting, at least.
Yeah, not going to go down without that fight. And, you know, we do see the second Call of the Wild. Obviously, PNC doesn't have the option to armor up anymore because he took Fire Blast.
Yeah.
And it really wouldn't actually make that much of a difference at this point. We do see that Twilight Guardian coming into the hand. Draconid Crusher could be activated, but I think PNC kind of sees the writing on the wall here.
Yeah, unfortunately, he can play the Twilight Guardian and clear off the Misha, hopefully clear off either the Huff or the Liak with Ragnaros and be essentially safe, but he hasn't seen a kill command up to this point, has to know that his time is quickly running out and it's not likely for him, and we know that Joster just has lethal in hand.
Yeah, this could have been over a lot sooner, but I think, or more decisively rather, but I think Ragnaros just decided he wanted to try to make a game of it, so, you know, have to respect Senor Del Fuego coming out and making sure that, you know, this is a little bit closer. Yeah, PNC is going to go ahead and play down something, hope there's basically no kill command or quick shot in hand, and that the only thing there is that hero power, but we know better as casters that is going to ice it for Joster.
All right, Joster going to be able to tie up this series 2-2. And we have a match, Rob.
Yeah, now it suddenly becomes a best of 3. So, you know, no sweeps going on here. This will be a longer series than the last one. Napoleon obviously pulling off the gentleman's sweep against Dwayne.
Letting him get a game in and then just quickly pulling it back with that freeze mage. But yeah, Joster is going to take the win with his Hunter deck. The Dragon Warrior just failing to do what the Dragon Warrior needs to do. In this case, it just didn't curve out quite as well as it had to. Missed that turn 4, which was really, really detrimental to his overall gameplay, and Joster was able to get a lucky roll off a Desert Camel and just spiral the game from there.
Yeah, PNC will find other targets for that Dragon Warrior, though. PNC, as we've mentioned time and time again, representing Argentina, part of a country that's extremely proud of their esports presence. And, you know, PNC is looking to come in here and make his fans in Argentina proud. We had a chance to talk to him a little bit about being that Argentinian representative.
South American people is really passionate about stuff, like for example football, you call it soccer. The amount of messages and posts I'm reading, it makes me really happy to see an entire continent cheering for me.
They all want him to win because they all want to cheer for him and see a person from Latin America take the victory.
I think people underestimate South America in general. I think there are a lot of good players coming up, especially in Hearthstone. Snail was the first one to play in this tournament, and now it's me. I think this is the big chance for me to show everyone that South America really has the potential to win a tournament like this. I'm PNC, I'm competing here. Thank you so much to everyone who supported me in South America. Vamos America.
I love seeing the passion from the South American players. You know, they've been well represented within Hearthstone going back quite a ways, and you know, they're really looking for that first player from the region to kind of have that big breakout win. You know, we've seen players like Moligel, Correa going back to 2015 at the Americas Championship. We saw Snail last season. You know, PNC wants to be that player who comes in and books passage to the Hearthstone World Championship, becomes the America Spring Championship, and it's super awesome to see the region so passionate about competing.
Absolutely. They've had so much potential, but none of them have been able to sort of act on it yet up to this point. But because of PNC, this is certainly an America's Spring Championship. So exciting to see that South America has a representative once again. And PNC going to come back into this with his Dragon Warrior. Joster, the only Reno lock in the tournament.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting talking point because I asked Joster about this the other night at dinner because a lot of players are so high on Zoo right now. They just think it's super consistent. The win condition just gets you there over the course of games. Joster flat out admitted that he had not had a chance to watch DreamHack Summer and that he hadn't really watched a whole lot of tournaments going up to this point. So he didn't really understand that, you know, Reno Lock was a deck that's a little bit fallen out of favor with some of the best players in the world. And he wasn't super sure about it versus Zoo. So curious to see if that's something that potentially bites him in the butt a little bit.
I mean, it definitely might be. I think last week at Asia Pacific, 3 players brought the Reno Lock, and its record was something like 9-1. So definitely not the best showing. Zulok would have been a safer pick, but it could be a risk that pays off for him at this point. The Dragon Warrior able to put on that pressure really early, but Joster does have Reno Jackson in hand. So if he's able to run PNC out of resources, then, I mean, there's certainly a chance.
Double Alex Straza's champion. This is great. We are just charging. This is what I like to see, Cora. The Americas region is the home of the face, land of the burn. Just get in there with that damage. I am so excited to see this. This is the sort of curve you want for that Dragon Warrior deck. We even see the old Tempo Sun Fury Protector, which is the handlock version of, hey, slow down, come on. This is a friendly game. This has existed since the very origin of handlock, where Sun Fury Protector is just all about like, ooh, just stop.
Oh my goodness, Joster is at 10 health on turn 3. PNC chose to just go face with that Fiery War Axe, didn't even feel like trading, and you know what? Why would you? Like, honestly, why would you at this point? You have all the initiative. Your opponent is the one who has to catch up.
I'm glad you asked, Cora. This is why. Defender
That's
of
why
Argus,
you would.
That troublesome Defender of Argus. And the thing is, Joster has Reno Jackson. Joster understands, I just need to make it to turn 6. If I can make it to turn 6, I'm okay here. I don't think we're going to see another trade coming out. And ooh,
Absolutely not.
Joster is running out of daylight quickly here.
All right, PNC needs to seal this turn. That Shadow Bolt is such a key draw from Joster. I think it's going to give him the extra turn he needs.
Yeah, this is, oh my goodness. PNC, they see it. He's like, no, there can't be a Reno there.
Oh my goodness.
If there is a Reno there, this is absolutely brutal spot. I mean, he can't deal 7 damage this turn.
Nope.
Joster is going to get to use Reno Jackson. He's going to go back up to 30 health, and you can just see it in PNC's body language. This is just terrible. And, you know, so many players, I remember Terrence talking at DreamHack Austin after, no, it was Chalky talking about Terrence's deck at DreamHack Austin, basically saying, like, look, if Reno Jackson is in those top few cards and you get it, like, as an aggro deck, you lose.
Yeah.
That's just what you do. And PNC, we see him thinking, is there anything I can do? But I think he's going to realize that if Reno is in the deck, and it is in hand, well, we know he is in the deck, but if Reno is in hand,
then
he's
he
going to do it.
I mean, it's not over yet. It's going to reset the game, but PNC still has a pretty decent hand. Joster's hand is a little bit heavy, and PNC essentially needs to just pull back together 30 more damage, but he did it initially with just 2 Alexstrasza's champions and a Fiery War Axe. So there's certainly still lots of potential left in his deck to deal the 30 damage again, no matter how bad it feels to know that your opponent kept Reno Jackson in the mulligan and top-decked that Shadow Bolt to be able to get that extra turn.
Joster just highlighting, he's like, hey, you know
Look
what's
at
about to
that
happen.
smile.
I do like at least getting down that Blackwing Corruptor. It does put a body on the board so PNC can go back to dealing damage. And I wonder if you're PNC at this point, if you're just like, nah, I'm not going to trade with this Reno Jackson. You know there's no Pandaren Brewmaster or any of that kind of shenanigans. So it might just be time to,
Brewmaster, Rob.
yeah, one of those things.
Ancient Brewmaster, Rob.
Fiery
The other
War
one is
Brewmaster.
Ancient Brewmaster.
Right.
There's 2 of them. Yeah, PNC just sticking with the game plan. Could actually trade into the Reno Jackson with his Corruptor and the N'Zoth's first mate, Rusty Hook.
Oh, and it looks like he's doing it. He realizes he needs to slow this game down just a little bit to preserve future board states, but
Now Joster has options. He has the health total to actually slow down this game and make decisions, which is really important for him. And instead of going ahead and Siphon Souling that Blackwing Corruptor, decides to just play out Emperor Thaurissan.
yeah, this game has gotten a whole lot more interactive for Joster, who up until this point was just pretty much up against the rope shouting, stop hitting me. But now he has the opportunity to start, putting his game plan to work. And we see Twilight Guardian in the hand, but no dragons to activate it. Did manage to get out the Blackwing Corruptors, though. PNC did.
Yeah,
Next turn,
PNC
Ragnaros can come down, although with that many cards in hand, you're positive that there's going to be a Siphon Soul and potentially even a Big Game Hunter, although I do not believe Joster is actually running that. So
We don't see any big game hunters, but Twisting Nether is another,
Yep.
while a little bit overcompensating for a Ragnaros, it is a way to deal with the minion on turn 8. So Joster, Hellfire, I mean, that's a clean board clear, and he's going to be able to Refreshment Vendor for 4 health and kill off that Fiery War Axe with his Acidic Swamp Ooze, and Joster has just absolutely taken control of this game.
PNC gonna slam down the Ragnaros, and I approve of this. This is what you do at this point. You're not gonna mess around with a Quarterfinal Elite and Twilight Guardian, but Ragnaros is gonna trade off minions, and I'm pretty sure we're just gonna see the Siphon Soul come out after the Faceless. No,
Oh
yep,
my goodness,
there it is.
yes.
And there's,
That's
a nice Ragnaros.
How does PNC come back from this? It looked like he had this game all wrapped up on turn 3, and Joster just with 1 top deck was able to come back by himself the turn to play Reno Jackson, and now he is in complete control. PNC only at 10 health.
And that's why a lot of players say that playing against Reno Handlock is one of the most mentally potentially tilting things, because you have to push your agenda, and you just have to hope that there's nothing in there. And we're going to see the Shadow Flame come out there, and yeah, that's Joster even gives a well
Gonna be
played.
game.
I'm worried. I hope PNC after this game takes some time, kind of just takes like a quick breather,
Yeah.
deep breath, and ooh, 'cause
This is
these-
the kind of game that can get to you. I mean, if
It
you're
is.
gonna be tilted, this is, I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
So-
it's definitely something that PNC needs to be wary of, especially as someone who is so passionate about the game and passionate about competing. Joster, on the other hand, one game away from advancing to the semifinals tomorrow. So as someone who came in here, missed his high school graduation, has worked really hard to get here, got to be exciting for Joster. Before we get into this next match, however, let's actually get a quick word from Joster.
For me, the largest part of deck building is taking a lineup that's already been built before, or a deck list that's already been built, and switching a few of the cards. If you're expecting a certain deck, then you change a few of the cards to be a little bit favored against that deck, because every few percentage points counts.
Joster said he wasn't necessarily giving it too much thought when he put in that Reno lock, but obviously it worked out for him there. Required a little bit of favor from Shadow Bolt to make an appearance when it did.
Just a little.
As it was really the only card that was going to bail him out in that scenario, because otherwise he would have had to use something like Hellfire if he wanted to interact with that board. So PNC now facing elimination, and we talked about it earlier. Best of 7, single elimination. Whoever wins this advances, whoever loses goes home. Joster needs one win on this Miracle Rogue deck. Thankfully, Dragon Warrior can really excel against Miracle Rogue.
Absolutely. If PNC is able to do exactly what he did last game and push that initiative so heavily, put Joster down to just a few points of health by turn 3, 4, or 5, then the only heal that the Miracle Rogue has is that Earthen Ring Farseer. They don't have any taunts, and without the early removal, it's going to be really tough for the Miracle Rogue to deal with the Dragon Warrior's aggression. No Reno Jackson in this rogue, Rob.
I was going to say, that should be on the aggro deck good times checklist. No taunts, check.
No
Reno
health?
Jackson, check. Like, yeah, you give him the Earthen Ring Farseer. That's 3 damage. We'll do 3 damage.
It's fine. We got another Fiery War Axe. It's all okay. And PNC actually looks like he's got a pretty strong mulligan here. Going to be interesting if he decides to get rid of that Ravaging Ghoul maybe, but all definitely reasonable keeps.
Yeah, PNC is still looking pretty upset, though. A little bit torn up about that one. And yeah, this is still really good opening for him. So Fairy Dragon was really popular back in 2014 because obviously it can't be the target of spells. You have to deal with it in earnest. So cards like Backstab, which are traditionally so good at dealing with aggression, just do nothing to the enterprising Fairy Dragon. And the Fairy Dragons will also allow Alexstrasza's Champion to get going, although obviously Alexstrasza's Champion can be dealt with spells, so the consideration might be Backstab and Dagger, but I think you just got to go for it.
Absolutely. At this point, PNC, I mean, there's not much to play around with the Miracle Rogue, and you can't really... You could have played Fairy Dragon, hoped that you're playing around Backstab, but SI7 Agent, Coin SI7 Agent would still remove the Fairy Dragon here, so definitely I think just Alexstrasza's Champion and go while you have the chance. He's got quite a bit of damage building up in hand with that Inner Rage, which is a really interesting inclusion in this deck.
Yeah, we talked to some of the players over the weekend, and they were discussing what they believe are always the best ways to approach Hearthstone, and all of them said that, just unanimously agreed, that you can't go into a situation and kind of play yourself. You have to go into there and make the highest percentage plays all the time. And seeing Coin Eviscerate come out, it has to feel good for PNC. You understand that that's not really something you want to do generally. You want to save the coin, you want to save the Eviscerate for a bigger game, but Life Tap right on time, and that is exactly what you want to see playing the Dragon Warrior because you have so little card draw. You have none.
Yeah, they sacrifice their Battle Rage, but including that Sir Finley Murgleton means that you can pick up something like Steady Shot, or this Life Tap, which we see here, which is going to be some much needed card draw for him. Fiery War Axe off the top is going to save this Fairy Dragon, and PNC just continuing to build his board initiative, and very difficult for Joster to deal with it.
Yeah, really the only thing that I think PNC has to be considering with this line is the potential of something like Blood Mage Thalnos into Fan of Knives, but even that's only 4 mana, so you'd need prep. You need a bunch of stuff, and Tomb Pillager is going to be a welcome sight for PNC, who can do something as simple as Blood to Ichor and just swing the axe.
Absolutely, that would give him the 2/2 Slime token, going to go ahead and tap, which at this point, you might as well do as frequently as possible.
Yeah, no, you are the person who wants more reload in the hand as you continue to put down threats, and yeah, this is looking really good thus far for PNC. Joster is looking at the potential to play down the Azure Drake, and wow, PNC is even considering if he wants to trade.
I mean, It might be a little bit greedy to not.
Well, what are you
But
really playing around? You know, there's no abusive, there's no Defender of Argus. Like, yes, he can get a little bit of the value trade on something like the Ooze.
You preserve one of your fairy dragons, hopefully,
Right.
by hitting with the Fiery War Axe. Or you could just deal 3 more damage. And, I mean, coming up next turn, PNC did draw that Twilight Guardian off of the tap, so the Blackwing Corruptor is going to be able to deal 3 damage. He does decide to go ahead and use the Fiery War Axe, saving one of his fairy dragons, hopefully. So I do think that was the right play.
Yeah, this is going to be a good turn, though, for Joster. We're going to see double SI7 agent come out, deal with these fairy dragons, and this is one of those times where PNC, again, has to kind of sit down, be a little more level-headed, and figure out what the path to winning this game is. Blackwing Corruptor affords him the opportunity to deal with one at least instantly. You can potentially Inner-Rage the other one, trade in that Ooze, so PNC not happy to see the fairy dragons go.
Yeah, but he could even just Blackwing Corruptor and Inner-Rage Sir Finley Murgleton and trade. That would save his token and leave the board clear. He would also have the Blackwing Corruptor on board now. So as much as he doesn't want to use the Inner-Rage for trading, would much rather use it with something like Grom. Here, it does allow that Finley to get some good use.
Yeah, the only consideration there was the opportunity to draw backstab to deal with the Ooze, but it is just more damage overall, and at this point, you're pretty much just going for it, so...
Eviscerate off, Sap off the top, excuse me, does not help Joster out here, not enough mana. And PNC picks up another Fiery War Axe.
Yeah, curious to see. I think tap might be the opening of this play here, because you can always Frothing Berserker and Fiery War Axe, and then it kind of depends if you really feel like trading that Ooze.
Joster going to be at 7 mana next turn. If he taps, PNC will be at 18, likely not going to trade with that Azure Drake. I guess you kind of have to be a little bit wary. If Joster has something like Leroy Jenkins, Preparation, Cold Blood, tapping at this point could be a little bit risky.
Yeah, let's see what he ends up deciding to do. I kind of like the trade here. It's just, there's so much that can go wrong if you leave that spell damage up that I like this play. Zeril of the Poison Mind. This is actually really the only difference between Joster's Miracle Rogue list and PNC's Miracle Rogue list is the inclusion of this legendary from the Whispers of the Old Gods set. Sap, I would imagine, is going to be some part of this play.
You would have to think so. You have to deal with that Frothing Berserker somehow. Unfortunately for Joster, he was able to deal with it last game, but the Eviscerate also cleans it off pretty handily.
I think you're pretty close to actually killing PNC, though. So you're probably just going to want to sap that Frothing Berserker, save the Eviscerate to do the damage. But yeah, this does mitigate a lot of the damage here. We see 8 represented, so Draconid Crusher is a big draw.
Yes, it makes it so that the Twilight Guardian does have Taunt if PNC wants to play it, and now he's only at 16 health. Has to be a little bit worried.
Yeah, you see Rogue having all those cards, and obviously you understand, you've seen one Eviscerate, there's still that second in there somewhere, there's a card like, there is just literally Leroy Jackson in there somewhere as well, so there's not a card
went
like
with Leroy Jackson again.
Leroy Jackson. Goodness.
You know, we just saw Reno last game, Leroy this game.
I mean, I feel like Leroy would fit in pretty well with the League of Explorers, so I'm just going to say it's clearly
You know what? He's really adventurous. He just kind of wants to go for it. So.
He adventurously deals 6s of damage to people who often don't want it.
Adventurously gives your opponent 2 whelps. But in this case, Joster does not have Leroy Jenkins, or Leroy Jackson in that case. And PNC going to go ahead and play down that Twilight Guardian, which does get taunt thanks to the Draconid Crusher, and just replay the Frothing Berserker. Now we're going to see if he decides to trade with the Azure Drake.
Yeah, so if he goes ahead and just swings with the axe here, he puts himself on a... So he didn't. I mean, it doesn't actually matter that much because there's no taunts. But he puts himself on the ability to, even if the entire board gets wiped, somehow he can draw Kor'kron Elite, he can win. He can draw Grom Hellscream, I believe, is also in this deck.
Yes.
So, yeah, he puts himself on outs to win this match. And Joster draws the Auctioneer, but at this point, it's a little bit late to start drawing all those cards, especially without the prep.
All right, if Joster can clear off this board, PNC still has several draws, and he has Kor'kron Elite, he has Grom Hellscream, which could give him the win, but it's all on Joster to clear the board at this point to give himself a better chance of being able to come back. He does have a lot of damage, but that Twilight Guardian just shutting down most of his potential plays at this time.
Yeah, we saw him considering Zeril, but if he plays Zeril with no prep, he cannot play Eviscerated. I think Eviscerate's going to be part of the problem solving here. In terms of clearing up this board.
You can run Azure Drake into the Guardian. and you physically have to remove both the Frothing Berserker and the Blackwing Corruptor, or you're just dead. So I don't see a way out of this for Joster. He picks up.
He does get the toxin he's looking for,
Fire Bloom
but
Toxin.
yeah, it's still not going to do it for Joster. Joster brings out the well played, and we are going to be going to a deciding Game 7. So I like to see in this series where, obviously it is single elimination and winner advances and loser goes home.
Yeah, really important for PNC to come back in this game and actually win after that just crushing Reno Jackson in the last game. So he was able to tie up the match 3-3, and now we're on match point for both players.
Yeah, Joster needs to win with his Miracle Rogue. PNC is going to be bringing out his Zoo deck, and these are the situations where being a competitor of some experience, I think, has to, lend itself to you, because we saw he was a little bit emotional at the beginning of that last match, goes ahead, he steadies himself, manages to come back to this, and it is literally a best of one now. So this is...
Can't get any more high stakes than that.
No, absolutely cannot get any higher than that. But before we jump into this Game 7, we're going to a quick word from PNC.
My favorite class is Rogue, and I don't even know why it's my favorite class, but I just like it. Playing Auctioneer in turn 6 and going Conceal is the best feeling in the world.
The best feeling in the world, Cora.
Rob, I think winning this tournament might just edge that feeling out just slightly.
Or, I don't know, like lying on the ground having a bunch of puppies.
Puppies are good. Everybody likes puppies.
I mean, it's different for everybody, right? Like Miracle Rogue.
Exactly. For you, it's double kill command to face.
Sure.
Savannah high main to the dome, but for him, gadgets and coin conceal feels pretty good too.
Well, we'll have to see if PNC can manage to pull this off and advance to the semifinals of the America Spring Championship if he still feels the same way. It's actually the Hunter he needs to get the win with. Apologies. I did say Zoo earlier. Does have a pretty solid opening, though, if he tosses back the tracking and Call the Wild, keeps those fiery bats, and gets the pressure going. And this matchup is one where I think there's actually just a lot of swings back and forth. Cards like Savannah High Main are suddenly a lot less impactful because of things like that. But gonna go ahead and open up with the double fiery bat, which reminds me a little bit of the old double leopard gnome opening. Obviously less powerful, but kind of
having flashbacks. It's not pleasant. But you know what? Here it's going to work out really well for him. And you were saying the Savannah High Main is not as effective against the Miracle Rogue because of those saps. But here the Stranglethorn Tiger really shines just because it's a guaranteed 5 damage. It's a guaranteed Houndmaster target, cannot be sapped while in stealth.
Yeah, so PNC chose to play the Freezing Trap over Hero Powering. I'm curious, he's looking at equipping the Eaglehorn Bow, obviously, so it's maybe an investment in the Eaglehorn Bow, but do you maybe favor just peppering in that extra hero power? Because I think this is a matchup that's extremely close, because once the Rogue gets going, if you don't find that Call of the Wild, you can be in for quite a problem. Although, the Tomb Pillager, when it does finally do something, is going to go right back to hand, so maybe it's actually okay.
Yeah, it worked out for him. I would have to say that generally the Hunter does want to use their hero power as much as possible to get in that chip damage, which really makes a difference in the end. Here, he was able to play the Freezing Trap and picked up that Animal Companion off the top for a play on turn 4. If he hadn't, however, then it would have just been strictly better to use the hero power on turn 3 instead of the Freezing Trap, and then play Freezing Trap and hero power on turn 4. So it did work out for him this time, fortunately for him. And that Freezing Trap looks like it's going to get some pretty nice value.
It is, but at the same time, you see PNC just kind of cringe there, because that is not at all what you want to see, the Azure Drake into the preparation to Eviscerate. That's one of the things that has always made Rogue, even in incarnations of original Miracle, Oil Rogue, and now New Miracle, so strong, is the ability to have turns like that where you put down a body, you preparation, and then you're able to remove a threat. And now, Joster, one of those minions is going to get bounced back, but on the other hand, things are still looking really good for Joster, and this is where New Hunter struggles maybe a little bit more. Yes, he can play down the Stranglethorn Tiger, and it's probably what we're going to see, but he doesn't necessarily have as many charge minions as Hunter has had traditionally over the years.
Absolutely, and Joster not feeling pressured to attack with that Tomb Pillager is really intelligent. He played down the Azure Drake, and it's much better to actually have that Azure Drake attack into the Freezing Trap, because then you can play it again for 7 mana and draw another card, whereas the Tomb Pillager would just not get you any value at that point. So it looks like he's actually might save it for that Zeril and get even more value off of those toxins.
Yeah, I mean, he's not facing a lot of pressure right now. And, you know, Houndmaster, again, we've talked a lot so far this weekend about how problematic Houndmaster can be and how you have to play around it. But with cards like Sap even existing, Joster doesn't have it, but PNC has to be wary of it. It's one of those things where, you know, if you play down the Highman right now and it gets sapped, it feels like a blowout. Like, you're just going to lose. So Houndmaster may feel a little bit better because at least you get in the hero power, or if you want to, the Flame Juggler.
PNC targeting the face. Oh, wow. At that point,
I think you're going for it. I think you're swinging with the bow because you have the second one in hand. The point of the game where you're going to start leveraging the charges from the secret, that's gone.
Absolutely.
You got to win now.
He can go ahead and play the other one next turn. At this point, is Flame Juggler even going to help you, or do you just want a hero power?
Oh, I'm thinking you hit the fun times button, which is, of course,
Fun
steady
times
shot.
button. PNC does have an additional 5 next turn. He can Eaglehorn Bow and hero power once again. Kill commands left in deck.
I mean, I think you understand that the rogue is going to fully clear this board.
Yes.
Even with the trap up, there's a really good chance. So you're not playing around that anymore. You're hoping you draw into the quick shot, right? You're necessarily actually the kill command. No, but you can't play it all, so
Yeah.
he's going to have multiple turns.
All right, Joster has the King's Blood Toxin, is going to be able to draw a second card. Leroy Jenkins, not what he wants to see now, and neither is Violet Teacher. Normally, that would be really nice against the Hunter, seeing as PNC does not have either Unleash the Hounds in hand, but it's just too late here. And now Freezing Trap, actually, you know, not terrible. It did not get value on the Eaglehorn Bow, but it did bounce that Zero back to hand, so a little something there.
Joster not having Sap is pretty big here because he's going to have to trade in, and PNC basically needs 2 turns to win this game.
Yes.
That's all he needs, so if Joster can't assemble enough pressure, and it's looking like he might not be able to, although double Cold Blood Leroy speaks otherwise.
A lot of damage.
You have Deadly Poison, so maybe, you know, we're going to see Deadly Poison just come out, and yeah, the Cold Blood start going, and just going to start getting that damage in here, and I'm not sure what PNC can actually draw to do enough damage with the mana he's going to have. So he's going to have 7 mana.
He has 3 from the Eaglehorn Bow, 2 from the Steady Shot. That's 5. And
that's just going to do it.
That's it.
You see it from PNC. There's nothing he can do at this point to survive.
PNC took the risk he had to take, and it just didn't work out for him, unfortunately. Looks like Joster skipping his high school graduation might be one of the best decisions he's ever made, because he is going to take this series very close, 4-3, and Joster is going to the semifinals.
Yeah, he is going to be moving on to day 2. Unfortunately for PNC, that is going to do it, and the Argentinian contingency continues.